let's begin the show. Welcome, listeners. You are tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and with Corey.
Hello, everybody.
Unlocking Your Truth is a talk show. We broadcast on CIVL on 101.7 FM across the Fraser Valley from the unceded territory of the Stolo Nation. And it's a talk show about metaphysics and spirituality. And we also live stream on the Awaken Your Psychic Abilities Facebook group and on my YouTube channel. So if you love all things about spirituality and metaphysics and you want to join in the discussion, then join the Awaken Your Psychic Abilities Facebook group or watch us on YouTube because you get the opportunity to post your questions.
Yeah, I love it. A whole bunch of people have come on already. They're sitting there waiting for us, I think.
That's great. and in the second half of this year, 2020, if you're listening at some other point in time, we're celebrating a book that I wrote that came out this year called Intuition and Chakras. And in that book, I go over 22 different psychic abilities and how they relate to the chakra system. So every week for the second half of 2020, we have been covering one of those 22 psychic abilities, and we've been going on a journey together through the chakra system. And we have arrived at the seventh chakra, the crown chakra, the energy center on the top of your head, having been all the way from near the base of the spine and the first chakra and worked our way through all the other 6 chakras. So now here we are at the crown chakra, the gateway to higher consciousness. So the crown chakra is where you, the spiritual being, can enter your physical body because you are not your physical body. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did.
Did you think that you were? Because actually you're not. Your physical body is your vehicle, your vessel made of flesh and blood, physical matter, for you to experience this lifetime through. So you are an eternal spiritual being. You have no beginning, you have no end. That's I am the Alpha and the Omega quote from the Bible. You're eternal, you're an eternal being. And you're a highly creative, eternal being. And so this lifetime is one expression of your creativity. This body is an expression of your creativity. And it is through the crown chakra that you enter into the physical body. And so that you can experience the physical world, the physical realm, and everything that that has to offer. Okay, so the crown chakra is the gateway to consciousness. And there are 2 psychic abilities that we're going to talk about. One of them we'll cover this week, and the other one we'll cover next week. This week, we're going to talk about trance mediumship. Next week, we're going to talk about knowingness, or otherwise known as claircognizance. So this week it's all about trance mediumship. So what is trance mediumship? Well, it's actually just what I was talking about. It's the ability to bring spirit into the physical body. It's your ability to channel yourself or other beings.
But if you channel yourself, aren't you just going to sound like yourself?
Yeah. And isn't that a good thing? Have you ever had a time, Corey, where you've said something and you didn't sound like yourself?
Actually, yeah.
I bet you have. And, we've all had that kind of experience where we say something and we say, oh, that was just like my mom.
Yeah.
Or that was just like my dad. Or we do or say something completely out of character. what is happening there? That's your trance mediumship, and you are not in control of your trance mediumship because you are channeling someone other than yourself, and you are doing it unconsciously. So trance mediumship. So I like to just read an excerpt from the book to explain what trance mediumship is. And like we were saying, what the point of it is to help you bring yourself into the here and now so that you can make the most of this earth journey. No point having a body if you're not going to be in it, in my opinion.
Good point.
And a lot of people spend their life not in their body, not grounded, floating around. But if you want to manifest, if you want to create, then you need to be in the body if you're wanting to do that in the physical world, right? Because if you're disassociated from the body and the physical world, it's not going to work out very well. All right, so trance mediumship is the ability to bring spiritual energy into the physical body. Everyone alive on earth is a trance medium. You are spirit, you have a body, and you have the ability to bring your spiritual consciousness into your body. So we're all spiritual beings and have created our bodies to experience physical reality. Spirit exists outside of time and space. You, the eternal being, can be anytime, any place, anywhere, but your body can only be in the present moment. So trance mediumship helps you, the high vibration entity, connect with your body right here, right now. So if you wish to consciously guide your life, it helps to gain control of this ability. If you are not present in your body, you can't possibly be in charge, and your ego, pain, emotions, and intellect will dominate, or somebody else, even, as we were just talking about. So your trance mediumship can be used to channel you, which is a preferable thing, really, divine source energy, or another entity. And we'll talk about what we mean, what kind of another entity might that be. So a challenge in gaining seniority with this ability is losing control of your own body. You could channel a trusted guide or be hijacked by a spirit against your will, and we call that possession in an extreme case of that. In both cases, another being controls your body while channeling. So, and while channeling and possession are extreme examples, we've all channeled someone else. So that example I gave before, like if you have ever found yourself saying something and then you go, that was as if I was my mother, or that is as if I was my father, then you were channeling some of their energy through your system. And then conversely, if it's easy for you to get others to do and say what you want, you could be using your trance mediumship to control other people and to invade their space. So, and there's lots of examples of that, out of control trance mediums who are, well, consciously or unconsciously manipulating other people through the crown chakra. And if we look back in history, we can see plenty of examples of that. Hitler is a good example, maybe, of it, or any of those, those cases, Jim Jones, where they all drank the Kool-Aid, for example. Those gurus who have extreme beliefs and concepts about reality and who seem to control their following, and their following will blindly follow them like lemmings to their death even. That's an example of that person who's the guru exerting control on a crown chakra level of their following. So this treasured gift is meant to give you access to your personal space, so you can create through it. You are the god of your own universe and are capable of taking charge of it. If you want to consciously create a purpose-filled life, your trance mediumship can help you because it gives you access to physical reality through your body. And I'll read some more from the book a bit later. But maybe we should dispel a myth here, because I don't know, maybe some of you are wondering, well, what is the difference between mediumship and trance mediumship? So I think I should probably explain the difference between the two. Mediumship is really commonly used to describe the act of communicating with deceased loved ones. So often we'll say somebody is a medium, then their job is to help connect you to loved ones on the other side and bring information. How do they do it? They can do it through many different psychic abilities. So if you go back over all the episodes so far this year, a medium who's communicating with dead people, they could be using their clairvoyance if they're seeing the deceased person, describing what they look like and communicating them with them in that way. They could be using their clairaudience because maybe they are hearing messages from the deceased loved one. They could be using their claircognizance, their knowingness, which is what we're going to talk about next week, to just simply know. Or they could be using, another ability, or they could be channeling that deceased person's energy through their own system. And that's when you get the medium that says, oh, I'm having heart palpitations. Has anybody got anyone who passed away from a heart attack? Or, oh, I feel crippled and my hip hurts. It's because they've allowed the energy of that deceased person into their space, which is, in my opinion, not particularly healthy, because there are ways of communicating with other beings without allowing their energy into your space. So a medium, someone communicating with dead people, can be doing it in many different ways, some appropriate and some maybe less so. But trance mediumship is specifically relating to the crown chakra and the ability to channel energy into and through your body. Predominantly your energy, but it could be divine source energy. It could be a guide. So, for example, there are examples of people using their trance mediumship in a safe and benevolent way to channel other beings. So, one example might be if you've ever heard Cryon channeled by Lee Carroll. So, Cryon is a benevolent entity who comes through Lee Carroll to give messages which are beneficial to humanity. So Lee Carroll would be using his trance mediumship to channel Cryon. Another example is Esther Hicks and Abraham. And Abraham is a higher aspect of her own consciousness. So she's using her trance mediumship to channel higher vibrations and levels of her own being in order to deliver that information. And so that's what your trance mediumship is. And it's all, you can also attune to different vibrations through your crown chakra. So you can raise your vibration up or down, or shift your vibration in order to tune into certain energies.
So that's how you. I was actually going to ask the question: how do you know it's you, or how do you know you're channeling another being?
Well, you see, that's part of the experience, and that's why I would advocate anyone who's just starting out to focus on owning their space and getting really, really clear about who they are and what their own energy feels like. Because most people are not clear. And definitely most people starting out on this work are not clear. Because we come into this world pristine from God, here we are. And then there's this thing called a family. And then there's this thing called culture, and there's this thing called education. And then you've got all of these energies and experiences that get taken on. So you take on a bit of your mum's energy and your dad's energy and your teacher's energy. And excuse me. And then pretty soon your vibrational field is not just you. So it's quite common for people to not even really know what their energy feels like. And the only way to get to know that is to heal yourself and clear your energy field, so that you get more and more familiar with what it feels like to feel clear and feel like you. Then it's easy to discern, because the only energy that truly feels good in your space is yours. So you know it feels right, it feels in alignment, this is me. And you know when there's other energies coming in, because this feels off and it doesn't feel like me. So I hope that answers your question, Corey. Yes?
Yes,
Good.
it does. We have a question from Nate, but I'm going to leave it till after we come back.
Okay, are we taking a break now then?
No, not just yet. You got a couple more minutes if you want to cover anything else.
Well, I'll talk a little bit more about trance mediumship, and then well, let me just give you an example that I wrote about in the book, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there. When I first started doing this stuff, which is at least 25 years ago, I remember the very first healing course I took, which would have been around about, I don't know, 1998. I'm aging myself. And I thought it was fantastic, because I got this healing guide, and the healing guide was a medical doctor. And the medical doctor healing guide used to step into my body and move my arms around. And I thought that was fantastic. That's, so I was channeling my guide. But I've since learned that it is much better to be in charge of my own space and work with guides in a respectful way, where the guide is not controlling me, but where we're communicating and agreeing together on how to do a healing. Anyway, that does bring us to the break. So listeners, you've been tuning into Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and with Corey, and we are going to be back soon. And if you're watching for the first time, if you're watching on YouTube or you're watching on the Facebook group, you're getting the show a week ahead of when it gets broadcast. That means that every 17 or 18 minutes, we just take a break for ads.
Actually, we're the people that are watching now are getting it a month ahead.
A month ahead. Well, that's an even bigger bonus, isn't it?
Yeah. Because we're the radio show. Our producer made some errors.
All right.
Okay,
Yes,
Dr.
so
Leslie,
get to
you
see
can
the
start up.
material ahead of others. Let me just take a sip of my drink, because
Oh, Dr. Leslie's drinking again.
water. Welcome back, listeners. You're tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and with Corey.
Hello.
Unlocking Your Truth is a talk show about metaphysics and spirituality. And we are in the middle of a series that we are doing on intuition and chakras, because I'm unashamedly celebrating my book called Intuition and Chakras. And in the book, it's in 3 sections, by the way. The middle section goes through all of the chakras and 22 different psychic abilities that are channeled through the chakras. The last section teaches you some energy techniques to help you to heal yourself and open your psychic abilities. And the beginning is setting the scene and explaining what chakras are and what your energy field is, and talks about life purpose as well. So back in the second part of the show, so let's talk a little bit about helping you discover your trance mediumship and figure it out for yourself.
Did you want the question?
From
Nate, or do you want to wait a little bit?
Let me read one more section from the
Sure.
book, and then we'll take questions. How about that? Then the rest of the show can be dedicated to questions. So if you are...
I'm sorry. High Priestess Illumination says, hi, funny, I'm in New Zealand and I'm already ahead of the rest of the world. Good
yeah,
one.
so if you are listening live, post your questions in the chat so that Corey can read them out to me. Okay. Let's see. What shall we say? So there's always like a section when we're talking about these different psychic abilities in the book that just is like how to have some clues if this is something that you're experiencing. And you might be experiencing it by being completely not in control of the ability or experiencing challenges that relate to the ability opening up. So it's not just about having experiences with the ability, but either way, these are signs. If you feel disconnected from your body or uncomfortable in your own skin, you likely don't have seniority with your trance mediumship. If you don't know why you say or do things, if you behave out of character or seem to have multiple personalities, you may be channeling entities. If you have ever found yourself saying or doing something like somebody else you know, you may have been channeling them. If you are a different person when you consume drugs or alcohol, you may be leaving your body as a result of the altered state of consciousness and channeling another being. It's tempting to escape your pain, whether by sleeping, watching TV, or getting drunk. If your life feels out of control, the way to counteract this is to get into your body. If you are absent, you leave the body vulnerable to other energies and will find it difficult to get back on track and create the life you want. So your trance mediumship helps you come into your body and own your life. Most people do not fully channel their consciousness through their body in the way that they are meant to. Our culture isn't set up to support this. Take, for example, a bored kid at school or an office worker at a tedious meeting. It can be tempting to drift off. But when this happens, you disassociate from the body and physical reality. An awakened human is grounded and uses their trance mediumship to be present, awake, and aware. A different challenge of trance mediumship relates to using it to control others. If it's easy for you to get others to do and say what you want, or if your presence in a room makes others feel unsafe or go quiet, your trance mediumship may be out of control. You may be unconsciously influencing the reality of others and invading their space. Even if you haven't done this, you may have experienced situations like it. And I will share an example from my own life, which really stands out because, you know, if any of you have been following me, you might know I used to be a scientist, and I also used to be a business development executive in the pharmaceutical industry. So I got to go to a conference where a well-known world leader from the past was the main speaker. So it was a US president was the main speaker at this lunch. And, you know, you had to go through all of the security, multiple layers to get into this lunch. And it wasn't just me and a few people, there were thousands of people. And it was at the time when there was the war on terror. And so this speaker was saying, you know, and bearing in mind it was a pharmaceutical lunch, he was talking about terrorism rather than science. And he said, we're going to catch the terrorists and we're going to kill them. And every time he said that, and he said it multiple times, the thousands of people in the room stood up and cheered and clapped, including me. And we were all looking at each other going, this is weird. Why am I doing this? You know, half the room weren't even Americans. You know, there was lots of Europeans there. And then when it was all over, we were all sort of shuffling out of the room going, that was such a strange experience. I didn't agree with what he was saying, yet I stood up and I clapped. You know, I'm not even an American. What does this have to do with me? And it was because we were all under the hypnotic influence of trance mediumship. And so that's, another example is, Hitler. How do these leaders get these masses of people to follow them and behave in those ways that are against their natural inclination? That's an example of trance mediumship gone wild. All right. So, but you can use it for good things to help. I use it all the time every time I give a reading, I'm using my trance mediumship to modulate my vibration so that I meet the person I'm talking to at an appropriate vibration for them to be getting something from the reading. Because if I set my energy below the person, they'd be like, heard that, seen that, so what? And if I put it too high, they'd be like, makes no sense to me, it's totally over my head. So have to meet somebody where they're at. So that's a positive way in which you can consciously use your trance mediumship, is to be able to communicate with people on their level. All right, Corey, I'm ready for the questions now.
You are?
Yes.
That's wonderful. So this one's from Nate. Nate says, are deceased people that enter your space intentionally trying to sabotage you, or do they not know better?
I think both can be true. I think it depends on the case. I think it depends on the case, I think, yeah, both could be true. There could be an energy that's deliberately trying to sabotage you, or just an energy that doesn't know better. I mean, I think a typical example of that sort of innocent energy that doesn't know better is a medium on a stage, and she says, I'm smelling cigar smoke or a rose perfume, and then someone in the audience says, that's my Auntie Mary, or that's my dad because he smoked a cigar. Well, the ability to sense smell is not a psychic ability. Some people say it is. They call it clairolfaction or clairalliance. But it's not in the sense of, in my book, I'm talking about the abilities that come through the chakra system. That ability is the physical system being stimulated by an invasion of energy to get the attention of the medium. And that, in a way, it's quite innocent, and that being might not know another way to communicate. But other times, it very well could be a being that wants to hijack you, be a parasite, feed off your annoyance. So I think the answer is yes and yes. Depends. Each case is different. Corey, you are on mute. And you are still on mute. Well, listeners, we're waiting for Corey to come.
Yes,
back.
no, I'm back. No, you're supposed to be able to press the space bar, and it releases the mute. So it did the first time I tried it. Anyway, so Jillian says, I've been told that my crown chakra is very open. However, I'm not sure exactly what that means. And how can I use this to develop my psychic abilities? I feel like I'm on the brink of discovering what these abilities are, but I'm not sure how to finally get there.
That's a brilliant question. It's actually one of my favorite questions. I just wrote an article for Mind Body Green all about this, actually, because they asked me to write an article that talks about how to open the chakras to develop the psychic abilities. So people think, well, opening the chakras means developing the psychic abilities. No, it doesn't. Opening the chakras means opening yourself up to whatever frequencies and bandwidth and that relates to that chakra. So being a master of energy and a master of your psychic abilities has a lot more to do with being able to modulate the chakra system consciously in order to achieve the state of consciousness that you are wanting to. For example, if I wanted to tune in to the spirit world, there'd be no point in me opening my lower chakras really wide, because my lower chakras relate to more to the physical world. And then I'd just have more data coming in from the physical world that would be a distraction from what I'm really wanting to do, which is to tune into the spirit world. So the crown chakra being very open is, let me say it this way, you can get access to all the information you ever need to guide your life by having your crown chakra relatively closed. Let's say you have your crown chakra about 10% open. Well, that's enough for you to channel yourself and all of your information. And all of your information is infinite and relates to you and is all you need. And so, but when you open your crown chakra really wide, then you're opening to everything, the entire cosmos. And so I see this issue a lot, like in my students getting overwhelmed with information. There's so much information, it's all coming in, I don't know what to focus on. It's because you're too open and you're confusing yourself. So Gillian, people reading you and saying your crown chakra is open might be saying it as a compliment to say, well, that's like means you're evolved. But all that means is your crown chakra is open. And therefore you are open to a lot of different energies. And so what I always advocate in my classes for students to develop their psychic abilities is focus on yourself first, learn about yourself first, channel your own information first. And for that, you really don't need your crown chakra wide open. And if your crown chakra is wide open, it's going to distract you from that. Hope that helps.
I'm sure it does. Thank you, Dr. Leslie. So we have another question. This one's from Brian, and he says, hi, Dr. Leslie. Lately, I've heard more of a high-pitched whine in my ear frequently. Of course, I've been sick lately, so I'm not sure if that's it or if spirit is communicating with me more. Could you look at that and let me know?
Sure. So Brian's question for everyone listening is talking more about his clairaudience, which is channeled through the fifth chakra and relates to the ability to hear as spirit. So I'm just tuning in to Brian and I'm just seeing a couple of things. So sorry to hear that you've been sick lately. I wonder in what way you're sick. It looks like anyway that the healing that you're going through, some of what you're doing in the healing is bringing up energy from the past to release energy from the past. And so when I look at the high-pitched whine and I look at your clairaudience and all of that apparatus that relates to that, I'm seeing a lot of past time energy. So I think that you're in the process of getting in present time with yourself, with your abilities, and really big time letting go of the past. So as I always say, the psychic development path is a dual path. It has to involve healing, right? It can't not involve healing, because in order to access your psychic abilities, you need to heal yourself and you need to clear and cleanse your energy field. So it looks like that's what you're doing. And so obviously a side effect of that is that the psychic abilities get clearer. At the moment, it looks like they're not clear because you've got this past time energy that's coming up for you to release. So it feels more like, it's funny, it feels more like, I don't know, let's say I had a big load of air and I had to squeeze it through a narrow opening and it would make a high-pitched sound. It feels more like that, like there's pressure and there's energy being released and let go of. I feel like it does relate to your clairaudience, but what's going on now is a cleansing, which can give way to an opening up of that ability. Thank you for your question. Oh, well, I'd like to see if there's any more questions.
There are lots of more questions.
That's good.
And we're almost ready for a break. So why don't we just pop off now a little bit early, a minute early, and then come back?
Sure. Let's do that. Listeners, this is Dr. Leslie on Unlocking Your Truth, and we will be back soon. Welcome back, listeners. You're tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey. Tonight's episode is all about the crown chakra, and in particular, a psychic ability called Trance Mediumship that is channeled through the crown chakra. And in the first part of the show, we've spent time explaining what this ability is and what are some of the challenges you might experience as you're going through that part of your awakening to having more mastery and ownership over your crown chakra. So now we're in the part of the show where we get all these fantastic questions from our listeners.
Yes, we do. and you've got a lot of them coming up, and some interesting names as well. And this one is from 1980. Achoo! I'm not trying to make fun of it. It just sounds interesting. And so, how does one heal and clear their own energy field?
Well, I have courses on that. I have a course next week called Unlock Your Intuition, which has a huge focus on that. Unlock Your Intuition is my foundation course to set you on a path to developing and opening all your psychic abilities. And so we spend a lot of time in Unlock Your Intuition, healing and cleansing and clearing your energies. I have a free meditation that gets you started on that. It's a free grounding meditation on my website. But I would say if you want to know more about that, join me tomorrow night. I have a webinar called Awaken Your Psychic Abilities webinar. And I'll get Corey to put the link on the chat, and also to put my email address, info@drlesliephillips.com, on the chat, because there may be a problem with the sign up page on the website. It wasn't working earlier today. And if that's the case, email me. I'll send you a link to sign up for the Zoom call for the webinar, and I'll give you a link to the page, because there's some, it's like a free training. So you get some exercises to do before that. And in that webinar series, you are also going to be told about how to clear your blocks to your intuition, and more about that Unlock Your Intuition course. So everyone on the Facebook group is welcome to attend that free training. Everyone on the YouTube channel as well. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. Through meditation, here, that's another answer. Through meditation, but a specific form of meditation that I teach, which is the Ancient Mysteries, puts you in charge of your energy and allows you to manipulate and work with your own energy and clear energies from your space that aren't working for you. Not just any old form of meditation will do that for you, though, but the one I teach does.
Okay, so the next question is from SG, and SG says, hi, I've been feeling the need to get in touch with my inner child and inner nature to get my life back on track and find what I love to do and move towards my life purpose. How can I do that?
Okay. So actually, I mean, I'll give you two answers. One's a similar answer to the person who, the true person who asked the last question, which is, you know, you need to get clear. So move all the foreign energy out of your space. Any accumulated baggage that you've laid on top of the pure presence of being that you are, get into your body, be grounded, all of those things. But I'll also tell you about, you know, this will sound like I'm going off track, but I'm not. This book came, part of how this book got written was because of people asking me about their life purpose. About 45% of the questions I used to get on the radio show when people used to write in their questions, and we had thousands of them in the earlier days, were like, what's my life purpose? And so I realized, you know, like loads of people are not in touch with their life purpose, though they know they have one. And I had a reading that I was doing at the time, and I still do, called the Psychic Ability Blueprint Reading. And the Psychic Ability Blueprint Reading gives you a profile of these 22 psychic abilities that I'm talking about, your unique profile. So it's sort of like if your chakra system was a musical instrument, it's tuned in a very specific way to support you in your life purpose. So the Psychic Ability Blueprint Reading, or the Intuition Blueprint Reading, gives you information about how your instrument is attuned with respect to these 22 abilities and how they map directly to your life purpose. So one suggestion is, the first suggestion is, you know, meditating and getting really clear so that you can find yourself again and connect with yourself again. Another suggestion is this book, Intuition and Chakras, takes you through a process to find your purpose, actually. And another suggestion is set yourself up with a Psychic Ability Blueprint session with me, and we can explore that together. And so anyone else who's listening out there, those are options for you as well. If you're feeling lost, like you know that your life should have meaning and purpose and there should be a path and a direction for you, then there is help out there to help you find that. Next question.
Next question.
Next question.
Okay, I have a feeling need to get in touch with my inner child. Anderini has two questions here. Basically, how do we increase our vibrations? And I also have this frequent knocking sound in my ears, but when I stop what I'm doing and try to listen, it's gone.
Okay, thanks, Anderini. So how do you increase your vibration? Same answer to the last two questions. Dropping the density, the baggage, the things that are keeping your vibration down. If you've got foreign energy in your space, like your family, that will keep your vibration down. If you've got pain from the past, it will keep your vibration down. So meditate and heal yourself and release all of those denser energies, and that naturally then increases your vibration. And then knocking in the ears. Yeah, I think that, you know, all of those things like knocking in the ears and whistling sounds and tapping sounds are very often a sign of your clairaudience opening up. And I used to have the same thing, by the way. I used to hear music, and but if I would try to hear it in silence, it would be a lot harder. But if I would go into the bathtub and leave the water running, I could hear it. So it's a bit like what you're describing, you know, that somehow it's coming through in the background when you're focused on something else, or it's the noise that comes through in between the noise. So all I can say is that that may well be a symptom of you noticing your clairaudience starting to open.
Wonderful. So I've got, I put that link on there. I also put the link for the quiz on there, the Psychic Abilities quiz, which they could do before the webinar, and I'll get your email on there in a moment. Okay, this is from High Priestess Illumination. I need to learn how to channel in a more controlled manner. I was meditating and using automatic writing and unexpectedly connected with you, with a female tourist who, with you and a female tourist who was murdered in New Zealand 3 weeks earlier. I was wondering whether to make contact with her family in the UK or whether that's intrusive.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess that's alluding to what I was talking about earlier, that, you know, what I notice in a lot of my students is that they're so open that the information is coming through randomly. So one of the things that we really focus on in my courses is how to be in control of that, so that you're the one that decides what information you want to receive and when you want to receive it. And if there are things that you're not interested in looking at, you don't have to. You don't have to have them impinging upon you. So we have, I just finished teaching a knowingness or a claircognizance course that relates very much to the crown chakra, and that's like a big emphasis there, and actually in all of my courses. So there's a clairvoyance one, there's a claircognizance one, there's a clairaudience one. We've been talking about that, and there's even a clairsentience one for empaths. And so now, would you be being intrusive? So I have a course on trance mediumship as well. And in that course, it's for more advanced students, but we really talk about managing your energy when you're doing readings, and also the ethics of doing a reading. And I would say one of the ethical guidelines I have is, if somebody hasn't asked me, then I don't feel an urge to tell them. You know, if I'm out there and people know what I do and they book a session with me, then they're asking me to help them. If they're a student and they join my class, they're asking me to help them. If they're like you, showing up on the radio show, then you're asking me to help you. But if it's just some, you know, somebody out of the blue, then I wouldn't necessarily feel under any obligation to share the information. And I certainly wouldn't insert myself into their life unless I had a really good reason that they were, let's say this lady is calling out on the news and on the media, you know, can anyone, even psychics, help me? Then you might. But that's, and again, this is my personal opinion, and I would never tell you what to do. But I think, you know, if people ask, then they're ready and receptive.
Very true. Very true. So your next question is from Light Surfer, and this is actually, I was thinking this earlier myself. So trance mediumship could also happen at, for example, rock concerts.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good example, Light Surfer. Yeah, because what happens in a rock concert, you've got this vibration, haven't you? You've got the music and everybody syncs. And then there's like a mass trance where everyone is attuned to that same wavelength. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I was thinking of the movies as well. And okay, so Anne has two comments and questions here. So I'll give them both to you, and I think you can put them together. First one is, how would you close a chakra down? You were talking about closing that chakra down earlier. And I had great emotional pain, which led me to chakra meditation in March of this year. I then started getting into Qigong, and now I find I can't really feel my chakras anymore. Why is this?
Okay. I'll look at that. So I'd never say close a chakra completely down. I just mean that you can, it's just like the aperture in the lens of a camera, right? You can have a wide aperture or a narrow aperture. And, you know, I teach people how to do that in my classes, how to you know, open their chakras or not. So one simple way to say is just through your intention. But, you know, there are energy techniques that you can learn and use to do that as well. And then I have to go into trance and have a little look at what your other part of your question is, why you're not sensing your chakras anymore. And sometimes people ask me a question and it feels like a bit of a longer answer and session than just a quick fire answer on the radio show. I am seeing something in the way that you've set your energy system up differently. And it is almost like there is and this sounds odd, and I'm sure that it can't exactly be true, but this is what it looks like to me. It's almost like there's a separation between the energy of the chakra, and there's like a disassociation or separation, more separation between you and the energy of the chakra than there was before, which doesn't make any sense, right? Because there can't be a separation between you and your chakras, but there's some kind of block or thing that is going on there. And so it surprises me if you're practicing Qigong, because I would have imagined the opposite thing to happen. So I would just say to you, Anne, if you wanted me to explore that with you further, then book a session, because I think what I'd want to do is just do some healing work and start moving some energy through your chakras to see if I can change that. And then usually as that happens, more information comes up as to why and what's going on.
Okay, next question. We've only got a few minutes left. I don't know if we'll be able to get to all of them. So Sharon says, I recently read that Edgar Casey named the eye chakra as the 7th chakra and the crown chakra as the 6th chakra. Do you know why he did this?
I don't believe he did do that. So I don't know that where you got that from. I've looked at his. In fact, there's a chart in my book which is drawing actually a little bit from Edgar Casey. Let me see if I can find it. So, I mean, there are some people who talk about the pineal gland and the pituitary gland the opposite way around. So, for example, I would say the pineal gland relates to the 6th chakra and the pituitary gland relates to the 7th chakra. And I know that there are some people that say it the opposite way around than that. But from my perspective, when you sit in your pineal gland, that's when you activate your clairvoyance, and your clairvoyance is through the 6th chakra. So I'm not familiar that Edgar Casey said that. I didn't believe he did say that. So send me the link where you got that from.
Okay. So Nate, I think this is more of comments to what you were talking about. So I see little transparent dots in my visions throughout the day, especially when looking at the sky. They started a couple of months ago, right after the time I started to dive into spirituality deeper. I haven't been taking care of my health lately, so I'm not sure if this is just a health symptom or if it's something spiritual.
I've had that my whole life. I mentioned it once to my spiritual teacher, the lady that and she said, I see that too. And so you're seeing energy. You're seeing energy, like little transparent things whizzing all around, and you're seeing energy. Yeah, I've read other healers talk about that as well. That's their experience of reality. And at nighttime, I see many multicolored dots of light all swirling around. So I think I don't think that's to do with your illness. I think that maybe that's a sign of something, a different way of seeing.
Okay, one more question here from SG says, when I talk to my ancestors at my altar, how can I know if they can hear me?
Well, they can hear you. You just need to trust that they can, because they can. If anyone, the only one that's having trouble hearing anything is the human. The ones in spirit are not having any trouble at all. Okay. you know, they're there to support us. They're there. They can't wait for us to communicate with them. So I think just trust that they do hear you.
Yeah.
Even if you're not having a signal that they're hearing you, they are. All right.
Well, Dr. Leslie.
It was a good show this evening. Thank you all for joining and listening in. Join us next week at 7 Pacific, and we will be talking about claircognizance, knowingness, and the crown chakra. See you next week.
Bye-bye, all.